at the first I just like trying to experiment with if this idea would work, and then like it turns out like it could be really great, and like I can use it to mimic the the styles and the utilities from tail in WindiCSS. So so then I kind of make it as an engine.
Hello, welcome to the DevTools-fm podcast. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey everyone, our guest today is the highly prolific Anthony Fu. Anthony, it's so great to have you on with us. You've worked on a lot of projects like WindiCSS, Vite, Nuxt, and you have a lot of tools out there. Vitest, UnoCSS, and Slidev are your most recent ones. All really great projects. So would you like to take a little bit of time and tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and maybe how you got into writing tools?
My name is Anthony Fu, and I'm the coding member of Vue and Vite. As I already said, that I created several projects in open source. And yeah, I'm currently working on Nuxt Lab to work on Nuxt to the Vite integrations and the ecosystem. I would call myself like a bit like fanatic open sourcer. So like I kind of really into like creating, I don't know, like creating new project and then like trying new ideas and then to make the ideas come true. So like I kind of trying to like I have some time to like dream about ideas, and that some of them might be realized into the real projects, and then some of them like I just implement the proof of concept, and then like it doesn't like work as what I expect, or like it's not like interesting as I expected. So like those projects just get abandoned, but like I'm pretty fine with it. So yeah, I guess that's kind about me to like and how I create things.
It's kind of staggering looking at your project page on your website. It's just like it goes on and on and on. I was like listing them in our doc for the episode, and I'm like, I don't think I can list anymore. Like there's at least 100 projects on here. Are all these projects maintained, or is this just like every project that you put out?
Yeah, I think the most of the projects that I list on my site are maintained. Like as long as there are issues or like pull requests, I will handle them. And like when new changes got merged, and I will release it. So and some of them are just like if they don't get like too much involved from the communities, that's and I don't use it as well. They may be like stay as is, but like but you can say that they are still maintain it.
Nice. What got you into open source? Like, what was your first sort of introduction to open source?
Yeah, like I think it's from my high school. There's a website in China called Zhihu, which is a bit like Quora. Um, so like there you can ask questions and answer questions. So there are some like when I was in high school, there's like really successful guys like talking about that. Oh, okay, you can make open source project on your GitHub, and then the GitHub can be the profile of your resume. They can count about your ability of doing something or like at some extent. So I just have these ideas in mind. So I was trying to like create like I don't know like trying to make projects that being popular and trying to figure out like what's the project that people needed and then what I can do. But the but that in that ways that doesn't work. So like I kind of spent like 4 years in my college to like figure out what's the project that would be success. But then I failed it. But at the like the summer vacation after my graduate, so I can start the project called IIT Island, which is an ES Code extensions for IIT for internet internalizations, and that's the plugin that I need to build another app I need. That's the project that from what I need actually. So that project got like I think at the beginning I got 300 stars, and I'm really happy with it. So I kind of started to involved with more time in it, and then like to share it on Discord and on Reddit, and people are kind of react to it. And then like it was initially like built for Vue team, like specifically for Vue, things like I'm building an app using Vue. So then like people were asking like if there's a React version of it, or like will it support React. So at that time I kind starting to like getting more involved with the open source community, and then like I kind of refactor it to be like framework agnostic. So like for now, like it kind of support over 20 frameworks that you can install it and use it out of the box. So I think that's the first project that I got success on open source. I think like the other like before that I kind of share a few projects that I create, but the problem that I had is that I didn't think about how my project should be faced to the community. That I didn't document it well, and to say that how you can contribute to this project and how this project would benefit to the communities. That's the thing that I didn't think about. But 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 for now, like I think that's kind of being a very important part for an open source project to grow.
Yeah, fostering that community is super important. Would you say that those earlier projects before this internationalization extension took off, you were trying to kind of like ride a hype wave and like trying to like feel out what might be the thing that pops off, but the first thing that actually popped off for you was something that solved an immediate need for you?
Yeah.
How it goes. So you'd mentioned that you are working at Nuxt Labs now. What are you working on there specifically?
So I think the initial like the job is kind of really flexible. So like the initial thing is that to help with the Vite integrations with Nuxt. Things like the Nuxt 3 is using Vite by default, where like you can swap to Webpack if you want. And then like I think the scope become a little bit bigger. So like things like Nuxt 3 itself is open source and the ecosystem is open source. So like I kind of still working on open source. And also some of my projects would benefit to the Nuxt ecosystem, for example, like Vue use, which is a Vue utilities. That's like basically like if you are going to do a Vue app, Vue 2 or Vue 3, like if you use competition API, that's you likely to use it. So maintaining Vue use and also like other ecosystem libraries becomes like also part of my job, which I think is really good, and kind of being very lucky to do it. And yeah, and also like I kind of serve other than my projects, I kind of serve the bridge between the Vite team and also the Vue team. So for example, like if there's some features or like there's some blockers in Nuxt with Vite, so I can forward this message to the Vite team. So like we can discuss about it and maybe ship the fix for it, and then like so it will fix for Nuxt, something like that.
Nice, nice.
So it seems like you do a lot of Vue.js centered work. Your first successful open source library was Vue centered. What about the Vue ecosystem draws you to it so much? What made it your go-to framework?
I think it's definitely the competition API. But like before that, when I learned Vue, it's about like Vue 2, Vue 1.0 to Vue 2.0 section. So like I think the main thing that I can choose Vue is that originally like it's the easiest to learn, and then like it goes with the competition APIs, and I kind of really like it. And things like I'm also getting more experience with the JavaScript, and yeah, it's just like fit my taste, I guess.
Vue definitely seems like in browser sense closer to the middle. Like you are definitely like writing more JavaScript up front. That's just like plain old JavaScript. Like lately I've been writing lots of React code with lots of hooks and lots of dependencies, and it's such a mental model to get over, and something that's simpler, I could see how that would be a lot more attractive.
I had the same sort of journey. So I started with Angular back when that was basically the thing that people used, and I wasn't a huge fan of Angular. And then I got into Vue during the like V1, V2 transition. And the biggest thing that I liked was like when single file components come out is like it felt like, I was just writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript just in like a singular file. And I still like that model. I really love that model today. And, React and other frameworks have like their own ways of sort of like making that sort of work. But I learned a lot from Evan's work. Like I dug through Vue Loader back in the day and like learned, that's basically how I learned like how Webpack plugins really work. And I don't know, it's a pretty cool ecosystem. And plus one thing that I'll give credit to Evan and all the community members is like the docs in the Vue ecosystem at large are just so good. They're so good for like everything. So, yeah.
So we talked about it a little bit already, but you have a Syndra storehouse level of packages. Like you have countless packages, and with a bunch of packages comes a whole lot of work. I manage a tool. I've been pretty bad at looking at issues and pull requests, but it's a lot of work and it can feel pretty daunting. Have you found that managing these PRs and issues has become a burden since like you have so many different libraries, and has like a community popped up around you to help you out with all of this? Or is it just a one-man show?
There are several communities around my projects or like around like certain projects. So, and then people are like really helping out. And for example, like Vitest, like we just created, and now like we have like 16 members and over 70 contributors to the project, and like people are kind of really involved and helping out each other. So like for me, like yeah, I kind of still aware that when I kind of create a new project, that my issues or like it's kind of growing. So like for now, I'm kind of afraid to like create new projects, but like when it's necessary, you have to do it. But like I think my method to like manage this is like to try to like get involved every day. I will try to handle the new issues like on the new notifications coming from my GitHub, and then like I will try to clean up every day. So like I don't accumulate too much for the rest. So like I don't get burnout. And also like I kind of think one of the benefit of like having many projects that you can get you can jump around with it. So like if you get bored with a one single project, you can jump to another and to like change to refresh your mind, and then like you can go back. Like I can kind of continuous working on them to sort of like be efficient, I guess.
How long have you been doing open source? Has it been like lots of years or just a few years at this point?
I think like from the VS Code extension we just mentioned about it's about like 3 years. But like it's getting like really serious, I think is like almost 2 years. I was still a graduate student 1 year ago, and then like after I graduate, I kind of think that okay, like I have a few projects and I have a few sponsors, and then like I kind of really like what I'm doing, so I kind of think that like maybe I can just go for it. So like I took like a few months of full-time open source to do full-time open source. So I kind of think okay, I maybe I get a little bit less, but like at least I can still make a living. So but like I can do what I kind of really enjoy it. So I didn't looking for a job, but like I kind to take my full times to working on open source, and then like the Nuxt come up to me and what they are doing and what they I kind of really in a match with what I enjoy. So like I joined them to like keep working on open source.
So if they hadn't come along, you would still be doing the full-time open source?
Yeah, I think that really depends. Things like GitHub sponsorship is really good, but like it's still really hard to like make a good amount like compared to like a full-time job from a company. So like I still need to take maybe contract to make like a bit more income. At least I'm kind of really being lucky to get this job to working on open source.
Having a job that supports you in open source is a lot more relaxing, because when you're trying to do it all on your own, you both have to advertise your own code and you have to advertise you. You have to be like, hey, I'm here. Please give me some money or else I'm not going to be here anymore. So joining a company that will support that is very nice.
Yeah. Going solo, it's a lot more than just the code at that point. You gotta deal
Yeah,
with a lot
right.
of stuff.
Hmm.
Also, it's just kind of stressful, it's like you just gotta bring in enough money to survive and, whatever your standards of living are and trying to meet that. And when it's, up and down, I have a ton of respect for people that either do open source full time or like even people who are just like contractors or whatever or do freelance or stuff like that. It just seems like it'd be incredibly stressful. Not necessarily knowing where your next paycheck is coming from or like when the next batch of money is coming in. I'm just like, woof, that's it's a scary spot to be.
I think that's one of the great signs is that I think more and more companies are trying to like hiring developers to working on for open source. For example, like Vercel is doing. Yeah, and also I kind of know a few other companies are trying to make these things happen. So like I think the gate for open source developer is like more and is going is getting better and better.
Yeah. I definitely think the industry is learning that if you pay people to do what they actually really like doing,
Yeah.
it turns out it works well for everybody. So, generally, how do you feel about the state of open source funding?
I think that really depends. I think that one developer want to like make a living from the open source. It really depends. Like I think you cannot like solely relying on the code itself. You have to marketing it yourself and also trying to find some way to like I mean I don't know like asking people to donate your money or like trying to find a business model to get some incomes from your open source project. So yeah. Mm, yeah, that really depends. But like, and just like happy to see that companies trying to get into it and then hiring that's supporting open source developers to do their own job.
Yeah, it's exciting to see all these new companies pop up where like they're mainly just open source companies, but then they sell a little bit of secret sauce to make the engine keep going.
Yeah,
Like with Remix, they initially were going to sell licenses for their code, but they realized, oh, the open source community could really help us with this, and we could sell targeted things that actually bring value to people. So let's talk about some projects specifically now. One project that popped up on, or I guess a set of projects that popped up on my Twitter timeline a lot was UnoCSS and WindiCSS. As I understand it, UnoCSS generates atomic Tailwind style CSS, but it seems a lot lower level than Tailwind. Can you explain to our audience what WindiCSS is and why you built it?
okay, so yeah, the history is like a bit long, but like
Go for it.
yeah, like I think it should come back to the telling I think 2.0, where that I like it a lot about the way that you can style your components and your app. When it comes to Vite, like things like Vite is like really fast, things like everything is on demand. So like if you use only one component, only the only this component or only this page will be compiled. So at that time, it's like I trying to use tailwinds on Vite, but like tailwinds like at the 2.0 stage, it generates all the possible combinations of the style, which is like a few megabytes of the CSS into your browsers, and that makes Vite really slow, and compared to the other parts really fast. At that time, I'm trying to yeah, I was thinking that okay, that maybe that's the trade-off that you want to use atomic CSS. So then I kind find out the project called WindiCSS, and I think at that time it's only have a few several stars. And then like I think okay, it's kind of rewrite the tailwind engines to do on demand. And I think okay, it really matches Vite. So like I create a Vite plugin for it and then like use it. So I can send a tweet about it. So like it can be like becomes like 10 to 100 times faster than Tailwind 2.0. And then like Tailwind also like this idea and then made it JIT engines using the same technologies. So I think basically like you can think the Windy is a custom compiler for Tailwinds that's used on demand, and then like make this happens and then push the Tailwind to ship their Jetty engine. And then like I think that's pretty much it. So at that time, it's like you can really feel that you can either use uh WindiCSS or like Tailwinds JITs on Vite. Both are really fast compared to the older one. And then it's been a while, and then like from time to time I kind of find my issues that I'm not very clear that's how I can customize those utilities. For example, like there are several utilities from Tailwind that you can apply, maybe test color it to your elements, and then you can use themes or like use colors to override those colors as you want. But like it's not very clear that's how you can maybe add like more complex style to it. When you're creating an app, you must have need to extend the design system of Tailwind. So I find that really difficult to me to read the documentations from Tailwind to write a plugin for it. And then like it's not really clear that how you can do it really straightforward. Or like when one thing doesn't work, you didn't know how to figure out how to solve that to fit what you need. So then I come up with like maybe I can just like put what I want, really simple, really straightforward. For example, like to be like pending with the 100 units, and then like I can just set the rules and P100 and the style with it. So when I use it, it should generate it. So that's the initial idea that I created UnoCSS to it, and then I kind of find out with this approach that's it could be like really simple things like you just matching the string and generating the CSS, and things like we don't do the parsing, we don't need the AST, so like we can just do the string construction, which could be like really fast. At first I just like trying to experiment if this idea would work, and then like it turns out like it could be really great, and like I can use it to mimic the the styles and the utilities from Tailwind or WindiCSS. So so then I kind of make it as an engine. So like as an engine, it doesn't come with any utilities, but like using preset, like we have the preset called preset Win, which is like the common set of the Tailwinds and the WindiCSS. The engine itself is on opinions. You can build your own design system ground up, or like you can extend from the preset that we had or like the committee had, which I think that's a really good way to for others to like create their own systems as they want.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've been following UnoCSS since you put out that really informative blog post about what it is and how it works. So what's your plans for the future? I mean, it sounded like early on that you thought about maybe seeing if you could integrate it with WindiCSS, but is that still going to be a thing, or is it going to be standalone? And sort of where are you thinking about taking it?
Yeah, it has been a few months, and then like we can develop a lot of tools around it. So like you can use it as a runtimes with a CDN, like you can just pull and it will generate styles on demand instead of like like providing all the CSS combinations from a CDN. And then like we kind of build in VS Code extensions, Webpack plugins, and so on. And I think it's going really great. And actually like it's still marking it as experimentals, but like I see quite a few people already use it in productions. The main block for me to like shipping with the 1.0 is that I just I just don't want to like make it hard to like making breaking change. So like I kind of think it's still a state that I want to make. I want to improve the designs. I can introduce the breaking changes more easier without the 1.0. But like
Yeah, no
as at
worries,
the
no
state
worries.
of the stabilities, I think it's already stable. It's already stable enough. So about WindiCSS, that we indeed like still planning to like use UnoCSS as a new engine, WindiCSS v4, and we're working on it. But like it's still like a lot of work to do since like the API is a little bit different, and the Windy is compatible with the Tailwind's configurations APIs, which like in UnoCSS that I kind trying to like getting away of those tech further. So like to say that's what I can go. So yeah, I think that the thing for migrating WindiCSS to use UnoCSS is like still in progress. It's still the same, but like it may take more time to it.
So it looks like this is a pretty flexible system for creating atomic CSS systems. Like I think that's super useful. At my last company, for the design system I was working on, I made a much shittier version that would generate atomic CSS classes for our design tokens. I honestly, right now I'm in the same process of creating a design system for my current company. And I definitely see myself going towards this sort of model, because having just a design system, that doesn't cover all your bases. Like your components, like one of the two things I code components by, a component should not define its margin and it should not define its width, because that should be up to the person using the component to define those things, just to make it easier to use. And the way you define those things, I think the best way is with an atomic CSS class, because adding CSS in all the other ways, there's lots of pitfalls to that, but adding an atomic CSS class is like so much less friction to getting that experience out the door. So have you seen other companies and other design systems start using UnoCSS as a base for their own atomic CSS mixins?
Yeah, I have heard like a few like people trying to reach out for me to like saying that their company are using it. But like, for me, that's what I'm most aware of is that in Nuxt Labs we have a product called Docus. So like in Docus, that they are trying to use it to match with their design tokens to generate those tokens for their design. Which like we can, since like I'm part of them, so like we can working more closely to like fit what they need, and also like I can also learn more about what is design system like, or like with design token like.
Yeah, it's all just guessing until you actually get in the weeds and go, oh, does this actually work? Like you were saying with your other projects.
Yeah.
It looks cool though. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see where it goes. So maybe we can talk about the really hot project. And I'm really excited about this because we just integrated it at my job. So we're using Vitest at Oxide now, and we just dropped Jest. That was awesome. So talk a little bit about this. Like Vitest is pretty new, but it's like blown up. Like there's so many people contributing to it, and like it's insane how much you and everyone that's working with you have been able to do, and like what is a relatively short amount of time. What inspired you to make that, and then like how did it take off? Was that like something that you tried to make happen, or did it just like people just really liked it, or what?
This is one of the problem of Vite from the day one, since like Vite is like kind of being like really like creative to not bundle your app, but like using the browser's native ESM support to like make your app running in browsers. So also like make this performance boot. But like this also like introduce a problem, things like you don't bundle your app, and it will being like a little bit different from that what Jest has. Things like just will bundle your apps, and also like you know like if you made some customizations in Vite, or like maybe in Webpack, if you install a plugin for it, then like you also need to install a loader for Jest, which like if you introduce JavaScript to your project, you might need to use TS loaders for your Webpack app, and then like you will need to use you will need to install TS Jest to have the Jest supporting TypeScript. So Actually, like this comes the problem is that you kind of duplicate your effort to make your app and the test running. Things like they are actually like running different environment and using different transformers. Things like even though they behave the same. So and this things like Vite has their custom transformations logic and their internal plugins for it. So if you want to like just supporting Vite, it means like you will need to rewrite all your internal internal transformations with a Jest version. While like Jest's API doesn't allow you to like applying like async transformations and also multiple transformations for one file, which like could be like a little bit like problematic. And also like the lack of native ESM support from Jest would also like becoming more and more problem since like Vite is using ESM by default or like it's ESM first. And then like so that's the thing that some of the people like trying to uh migrate to Vite, but like okay, and then say like okay, Vite is great, but like the test the incompatible with Jest doesn't really like block them to do the migrations. So this is one that we kind of find really hard to like document it. We cannot like recommend any existing tools in our documentation to say, okay, if you go with Vite, you can use these test runners. The only test runner it works is that Cypress and web test runner, things like they are firing up the real browser, like they actually being like bundle agnostic. But the problem of them is that the overhead is too large. Things like you need to fire up a server and that really slow down their workflows. So that's the thing. That's the initial thing that's driven me to do this. But then like I kind of think, okay, test runner could be like a little bit too much for me to maintain or like to create. So I just have this idea, but like I didn't do the action. Things like I kind of afraid to it. But then like we have did this problem become like more and more people asking for it, and then at one of the team meeting of Vite, so we are kind of discussing this topic, and then like one the other members had to come up with okay maybe we can create a thing, and then he figured out a name called Vitest, and I think okay this name is really great, and maybe we can and it's available on npm, so we kind of think okay maybe it's time to make a test runner for Vite.
Our connection with Anthony was spotty, so from this point in the recording forward, we had to switch to Zoom. The quality of the recording will be lower. Thanks for listening. So we've covered a lot of the projects that we think are interesting from you, but what do you think is one of your most interesting projects? Which is the one that like, what's your favorite one to work on? The one that you keep coming back to and you're like, oh, I really hit the nail on the head here.
The answer of this question is kind of vary at different times. So I guess my answer is that the project I'm working on, I guess. So yeah,
Whatever
so
the text editor is
like,
open to.
yeah, kind of. But like I think for me, like I have to like get into this flow that I kind of really into this project and try get really passionate about like improving it and working on it in the context. So I kind of think if you're gonna pick, I kind of like all my projects, things like I took time and effort to make them and with my best efforts. So I guess yeah, the answer is maybe the project I'm working on.
Yeah, I think I'd have the same answer too. Whatever's striking my fancy at the moment. Everything else just seems like a burden when you're not in it.
Yeah, so we've asked this question to a lot of folks who have come on, and just given your sort of experience with open source tooling, it's just interesting to see what you think. So, what do you think is the future of the web, and what are you most excited about when it comes to the web?
Okay, that's a really broad question. Yeah, I actually like I didn't really think about it. I kind of like what it is now, and yeah, I think the upcoming features of the web and the standards I kind of more like small details to it. But yeah, things like actually like I'm more into about like how we build things, like how the developer experience of the tools and how the tools evolve to like help us to better build those apps. And I kind of think that the developer experience is also kind of the user experience. Things like only you got the better developer experience, you can make more complex apps that's shipping with the better, like you can have more time to focus on like improving the user experience and like maybe experiment more like how the app or how the web could be. I think that's kind of the thing that I'm really into it, and I'm like really look, I'm really looking forward to like to see that how those tools grows and helping our lives better.
Yeah, I love that answer. I mean, it aligns very much with how we feel and the whole reason we made this podcast, because it's a little bit easy to take it for granted now, but like building a website, while sometimes we can feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many tools, it's so complicated. We have so much more capability now than we did, 10, 15 years ago, right? Like it used to be real rough, like real rough. And now it's a little complicated, but it's kind of exciting.
Shorter feedback loops are happening more and more now. Like when I upgraded to Webpack 5 from Webpack 4, our cold and hot startup time went from like 3 to 4 minutes for our Electron app to like 30 seconds on average. And just the amount of value that you can deliver when your app is just starting up quicker is immense. And tools like Vite are really pushing the boundaries on that, since I think Vite most of the time just starts up instantly. And with that, we are going to move on to tooltips. My first tooltip of the week is I'm going to talk about some things that I like from Radix. Radix is a headless component library from the modules team. We had Pedro, formerly of the modules team, on a few episodes ago. And I've been using this library to implement our design system here at Descript. And there's some things that aren't just components that I've found to be really, really useful and like nice patterns just in general. So the first one I want to talk about is the as child prop. If you've ever used a component library with React, there's typically a as prop where you can say, oh, I'm rendering a button, but render it as an anchor under the hood so that it behaves like a link. That is really hard to get right at the code level. So like making that generic, making all the types like right, making it performant for TypeScript, all of those things are very hard. And on top of that, there's this like weird mental cognitive burden of like, oh, this as prop is now completely changing how this thing is rendering and how everything is happening. So how Radix fixes that is with the as child prop. You can't actually say as div. Instead, you put as child and then put a div as the child. This is so much simpler. And like once you wrap your head around it, is just like way easier to get going. And it has a bunch of like a few different things that are better than the as prop. So like when you're using the as prop, how do you define some like default props on that component? Or how do you just use the component? Well, you don't, or you create another component that encapsulates your component that puts the right props in the right place. And it just adds to the complexity more and more as you try to use it. But with this as child prop, if you have, say, a button as the child, you just use the button, you put props on it, and everything just works. So this is a really nice pattern for React design systems. And personally, I've been adopting it in some of our components too. Even though they're internal only packages, I've definitely been using their internal only packages to make some components. So if you're using Radix, definitely learn to reason about the as child prop because it's very powerful. And then while we're here on Radix, I'll just also mention one other bit of goodness that I found while using them and reading through the code. A lot of the times they'll do something by default on an event. So for instance, when a modal opens up, they'll auto focus on the first focusable element in that, which most of the time is great. But sometimes you don't want that to happen and you want to do something else on your own. And for that, they have this like helper function called compose event handlers. And all that does is it'll first call the event handler that the user passes in, and then it will call the default one. Where the cool part of this comes from is if your passed in event handler calls event.prevent default, it doesn't run the default one from Radix. So say if you're in that dialogue situation and it focused on the first focusable element, but you're in a weird situation where that's not the thing you want to do, all you have to do is pass an event handler that says, hey, prevent that default behavior. I'm going to take over. I'm going to do the right thing. So like little things like this is why I'm coming to like Radix more and more, because like they get these details that like I haven't even seen thought of in other React libraries. And as a design systems developer, I've never thought of them before either. So seeing stuff built like this built into the code is very reassuring as I move more and more of my stack to Radix.
On the subject of design systems, I'm kind of doing that same work. I feel like all of our work is just design systems now. What's up with that? Anyway, so I've got two tooltips that sort of go hand in hand. The first one is Figma Tokens. Figma Tokens is a plugin for Figma that essentially lets you use a JSON config that defines a bunch of design tokens like colors and font sizes and whatever other values you want, and you can plug those directly into your Figma designs. So that's pretty cool from like a designer's perspective. But the really awesome thing is also it syncs down. It can like sync to GitHub. A designer can go through Figma and like update one of these tokens, and it'll like create a pull request or like commit to a branch or something. So it's like a really awesome way to keep your tokens in sync. The second tooltip that I have are kind of bundled with the first. The tokens that are output from this like Figma tokens package, they've got a little script that you can go through called like tokenizer or something. I'll put that in the show notes, but like sort of you can run it all through Style Dictionary, which is a library from Amazon that sort of takes a configuration file, like a JSON configuration file, design tokens, and like it gives you a framework to like output like a CSS style sheet or like CSS variables or like a file for Android or a file for iOS or like whatever your target is. And it's like pretty flexible. So just like this whole tool chain has been really, really crazy because like, it's like our designer can like make an update in Figma and then it like flows all the way down, and it's pretty sweet.
And if you want to learn more about Style Dictionary, check out episode 3, where we have the maintainer and creator of Style Dictionary on and talk all about it. Get in the nitty gritty. What's funny is you mentioned a few episodes back, the Figma CLI. I've actually been using that extensively at work. So you definitely have an eye on this space right now, Justin.
I feel like it's been evolving. I've done it the hard way for so long now. I'm like really excited to see it like get easier.
I think the overall JavaScript community is like trying to migrate from CSS to ESM, and there's kind of some problems with the pure ESM dependencies. And for me, that I kind of think the best way to like publish a library to be consumed by other projects is to like shipping both ESM and the CSS version, and then like using the export fields in package.json to that node to know like how should it pick the correct version of that package. So like you can specific the entry for CSS and the entry for ESM. The org from the Nuxt team that's built for the general purpose of the JavaScript tooling. So the unbuild is very good to like help you to build your libraries to like both ESM and the CSS with like minimum configurations. And one of the very interesting part of it is that it has a passive watcher. Like for example, like when we do the when we do the developing, we might use like TSC or like Webpack to bundle your libraries. But then like if you want to like make it more clear, like to automatically rebuild your bundles, like you may need to start a watcher, and once your source file changes, it will rebuild again. But like in unbuild, it provides a very interesting idea called passive watchers. Instead of the rebundling again and again, it wrapping with the the runtime is to like consuming your source code directly. So like you don't need a watcher anymore. It calls the command called stem. So like it stem your desk. It will generate your desk slash index.js, but with the contents that wrapping importing from your source code. So like once you run from the disk, it actually like runs through your source code, so you don't need to bundle it anymore, which is really good way to like boosting your developer things. Like you don't need starting a new terminal for the virtual again.
That's pretty interesting. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah. I do not like when libraries bundle themselves. It is just a headache. That's the one call out I have against Radix is they use Parcel to bundle everything, and debugging that is just, oh my God, such a pain. Okay. Mine's not really a development tool, just a cool tool in general. So recently, my fiance has been getting more into Illustrator and just practicing on it. I've been practicing a little bit too. If you look at my Twitter, you can find a cute little Charmander I did last night. But one of the coolest things about SVG to me is that once you have an SVG, it's basically just some HTML markup, and it's very easy to understand and also very easy to animate. And this is a tool I found on Twitter to animate your SVGs, and is just super cool. Like me and my fiance were able to get up and running animating our SVGs like in a few minutes. So if you have the need for animating an SVG, I highly recommend this tool. It's like free if you have your animation less than like 30 seconds or 3 minutes. So pretty cool.
What's it called?
It's actually kind of hard to say. SVJader. Like that's how they say it. SVJader. I think it's like animator with SVG. So SVJader. Yeah. So if you find the need for something like this, it outputs either CSS or JS, or probably even like native SVG animations. So very, very usable, very exportable, free and easy to use for the most part. You can make pretty things.
My last tool tip for the day is also just a fun tool. I stumbled across this project like last weekend or something, and it just like blew my mind. It's a project called Dust 3D. It's on GitHub. So this is a 3D modeling tool, but it's not like any 3D modeling tool you've ever seen in your life. Andrew, like, can you like play a video? Like, we can't record a video playing a video, but essentially, I don't know how it works, honestly. It just like it kind of figures out what you meant to do in a very interesting way. You actually have to play with it. So instead of like actually rendering a polygon and moving around vertices and stuff, you have these, for lack of a better term, these like controls, these nodes that you can see from two different perspectives, and you can like hover over a point and like use your scroll wheel to make it like bigger or smaller, or like, I don't know. It's really fascinating. If anybody out there has ever played the Spore game, the game from the Sims creator where they had like this creature creator or whatever, it kind of reminds me of Spore a little bit when you're building things. It's like very fascinating, but you can like I have no artistic talent whatsoever, but I was able to like go in and like actually model like a dog, and it's like it was decent, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. So if you're looking to like model like make a 3D model, especially if it's organic and you want to do it pretty quick, this is just an amazing open source project that like is really, really interesting to use. So definitely check it out.
So in this video we're watching, are they like using the picture to generate the 3D model kind of?
Yeah. So it's like you always do the model from like two perspectives. It like gives you like a front and a side view, and you just like basically move these little nodes around, and you like connect it like little lines, and I don't know, it just like it forms a model. And you instead of like picking from a base primitive like a a circle or a square or whatever, you can like pick from like a bunch of different things. It's like you might have like this polygon that like kind of looks like a leg, and you can like drop it in there and like almost like edit like a spline like thing to like edit the shape of it, and then like adjust the nodes to like change the size at different spots. I don't know. It's really cool, and it's open source, so definitely check it out. It's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
My last tool is PNPM, which is like alternative to NPM or YAM. which like to be like very fast. Things like it used instead of like creating like multiple version or like downloading, instead of like creating multiple version of a same package inside of your node modules, PNPM use hard link and soft link to like directly link the same version of it. So like it could be like disk efficient and also like being really fast. And like basically like all of my projects using PNPM now, and also like the Vite and the Vue ecosystem also like switch to PNPM. And like if you haven't heard about it, maybe you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things. Haven't tried it out myself yet. Most of my projects are still on Yarn 1, regrettably, but
Yeah, I think one of the very great feature of it is that the mono repo support. So like you can, for example, like if you want to run all the script from all your package, your sub package, you can just like PNPM and -r for recursive, and then like run, maybe run build, and then it will run all the build scripts inside of all your packages. So like you don't, it can also like can replace with a learner, and also like it handles with the installations and the packages for mono repos, which I find is really great.
I can't remember. Does it do like publishing well, like Learn a style publishing where it's like a fixed version, or like publish just the dependencies of like my updated package or anything like that?
It doesn't handle the version, but like you can use the PNPM -r for and -r for publish, and then it will publish all your packages. So it does have a few tools recommended to bump your versions in their documentations.
Cool. I think that about wraps it up for Tooltips. Thanks for coming on, Anthony. I know we had some technical troubles, but it's nice to talk to someone who's so productive in the ecosystem. Like I can't stress that enough to our audience. Like you are a man on a mission right now. So thanks for what you've given to the community, and thanks for coming on to the episode.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of DevTools FM. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and wherever you consume your podcasts. Thanks for listening.